Hello everybody, welcome to Great War Spearhead. I'm going to walk through the rules step by step, try and make it in a semi-logical sequence and avoid rabbit holes so I can walk you through the rules, and hopefully it'll help people who already know the rules to know them a little bit better, and those who don't know the rules to understand how things play out. So, Sean Taylor, I'm the author of Great War Spearhead with the kind permission of Artie Conliffe. Since I produced the rules myself, Robert Dunlop, Robin Sutton, and a couple of other people who I'll mention, I mentioned in the scenario books, but later on when I get to the scenario books I'll mention them by name, who helped us put together some of the scenario books that we have out there. 4 in number right now, or sorry, 5 in number right now, soon to be 6 when Gallipoli comes out. And yeah, so okay, let me start off. So the rules, Great War Spearhead II, they're organized in 3 parts. Part 1 is your command system, and that's how you're going to organize your troops on the table. Part 2 is the battle system, that's the actual movement and fighting of your troops. And part 3 is the table of organization and equipment, and we will cover that off as we go through the rules. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to walk through the prepare to play. Now, it says in the rule book you need 2 opposing generals, and that by and large is true. You can play Great War Spearhead 2 solo, but you really have to understand the concepts of the rules well before you sort of jump into the solo part, because it would be easy to fudge the game by accident. So you need 2 commanding generals is probably more specific. You can have as many sub-generals as you want. For example, when we did the game down in New Zealand at their National Con down there, in Canterbury, we replayed the Battle of the Marne with 21 divisions, and if I remember correctly, we had 10 players. So it was really cool. So we had you of course had a in-charge guy, so the C&C, and then you had sub-generals. You need several 6-sided die. You need rulers or tape measures. Of course, you need figures, and you need a gaming surface, and then a scenario. So in general, the rules are set up for a single tank tank or armored car or vehicle to represent 3 to 5 real vehicles. Artillery pieces on the table in a battery are meant to represent 2 to 6 guns generally. Could be 2 to 8 depending. And off-board artillery represents regiments of 6 or more pieces. Each infantry stand basically represents a company. It could be modified slightly depending on the scenario you're playing, but in general it's a company, and it's between 80 and 250 men. Depending on the time of war, the organization that you're fighting with, time in a campaign, all that kind of thing. Cavalry are a squadron, so roughly the same as the equivalent of an infantry company, and they represent between 80 and 150 troopers. The game is based off of Spearhead, the World War II set by Artie Conliffe, but the scale has been changed to better reflect World War I. So one of the things that you'll notice if you play both games is that Great War Spearhead is a larger scale. Each stand represents a company of infantry, whereas in Spearhead it represents a platoon. So there's quite a significant difference. 1 inch in Great War Spearhead by the rules equals roughly 80 yards. Now I'll be honest with you, the way I play it, the way I use the rules is 1 inch is more along the lines of 100 yards. It's just simpler for all the mathematics, and it works for me. So when I'm designing games, I basically run it off of meters anyway instead of yards, so that I know if I want to represent a kilometer, I need 10 inches of space. So because I use 100 meters to an inch. But if you're fighting a smaller battle, you're not really changing the situation too much by going to 1 inch equals 80 meters instead of 100. Now, you can play Great War Spearhead with just about any scale of miniature you want. And what I've got here in front of us is, over on the extreme left, you can see that I have here what amounts to a regiment, or sorry, a brigade in colonial or British Empire terms, of Australian infantry. And then behind them is a single German armored car, just to give you an idea of the scale of a 1/50th or 28 millimeter figure. Right beside them is a German regiment in 54 millimeter. Now, people have asked me, have you played it in 54 millimeter? Yes, I have. I don't have a lot of 54 millimeter troops, but we have played it. When I was play testing the rules, we used a whole raft of World War II 54 millimeter figures that a guy had in Kingston, and we played on a large floor space. I wouldn't recommend it on a table because we had to triple the ranges to make it feel right. But you know, up to you. If you have 54 millimeter figures and you got a whole bunch of them and you want to do it, go ahead. It works. Then we'll move over to the extreme right, and you see I have a Russian regiment there with 2 artillery pieces behind, and then a Mark IV tank and a Belgian Minerva armored car. Oh, sorry, no, that's not a Minerva. It's just a regular armored car, improvised armored car. So just trying to give you an idea of the difference in scale and scope. And then you see in front of the Russians is an entire division of Ottoman or Turks. Here, and here are the 3 regiments. You got 3 batteries of artillery, 2 machine guns, engineers, and the headquarters. So you can see how much space a 6 millimeter division takes up compared to a 54 millimeter regiment. So it just gives you some idea of the scope. Now, I also put on the table my 1st Canadian Corps stand. I like to make my Corps stands big and make them sort of diorama-ish. I'm not a good diorama maker by any stretch of the imagination. There's some really good guys out there. But it just gives you an idea of what you can do. And then behind that is a Mark IV tank and 2 Canadian MG autocars. So there you go. That's the various scales that I have, that I play with. I don't play 54 millimeter at all anymore, and I very, very seldom even put the 28s on the table in a Great War Spearhead manner. So there you go. That's where we'll stop for now, and we'll move on to the sequence of play in video number 2. Thanks very much.